If you've ever thought that eloping in a national park sounds incredible, but you're also kind of obsessed with the idea of eloping in Hawaii, then Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is literally the perfect place for you and your partner to elope. Hi, friends. I'm Bree, a Hawaii Island based photographer and videographer for couples who are self proclaimed as awkward in front of the camera. I love, love, love photographing and doing video for couples who are eloping in Volcanoes National Park. And I can't wait to tell you everything that you need to know if you are considering being one of those couples who elopes in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So, in this video, I'm going to tell you, like I said, everything that you need to know about how to elope in Volcanoes National Park, from where the park is, where you should stay, the best times of year to visit the park, all of the things that are important for a couple who are considering eloping to know about the park. So let's start with where the park is. So, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is on the east side of Hawaii Island, just south of Hilo, which is going to be one of the two major cities here on the island. There is an international airport in Hilo, so an easy flight in and out of that airport. And it's about a 40-minute drive to Volcanoes National Park from that airport. I know I've mentioned it before, but if you are coming to the Big Island, I cannot recommend enough renting a vehicle. It is a bit of an expense. However, with how big the island is and how scarce public transportation and ride shares and taxis are, it is definitely a highly recommend thing to do is to rent a vehicle. At Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is on the east side of the island, which is the Hilo side, but on the other side, the west side of the island, is the Kona side of the island. And it's really not a terrible drive to fly into Kona and drive over to Volcanoes National Park. In fact, I recommend doing that sometimes because it gives you an opportunity to see more of the island than just the park. And again, this island has so much to offer besides the park, so highly recommend flying in and out of Kona as well. So, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is a 350,000 acre national park on the east side of Hawaii Island, and it contains not one, but two active volcanoes. So, don't stress too much if it's not safe to be in the park during an eruption. Park rangers will gently but forcefully escort you out of the park and make sure that you are a safe distance away. They'll shut down roads, whatever needs to happen to make sure that people are safe. But in general, when eruptions are happening, it is pretty safe to be within the park and viewing the eruptions. Currently, Kilauea is in an active eruption cycle. So, since about December of 2024, we've been experiencing a few hours to day long eruptions about every 2 weeks. So, Volcanoes National Park is actually in the town of Volcano Village. And there's not a whole lot to do in this cute little town, but there are plenty of Airbnbs and VRBOs and a handful of cute little hotels as well. In Volcano Village, like I said, there are a handful of restaurants, not as much in the way of grocery shopping. So, if you're planning on staying in an Airbnb, I recommend stopping at the grocery store before you leave Hilo or Kona to make sure that you have whatever supplies that you need. One restaurant that is worth mentioning that I've been loving every time I go to Volcanoes recently is Lanikai Brewing. Their main brewery is on Oahu, but they have opened a tasting room here on the Big Island, and it's just outside of the park. They serve incredible food, great pizzas, good ramen, and of course the beers are great too. And they do actually brew and carry a sour beer. So if you're a sour beer lover, it's one of the few places you can find one on the Big Island. So, why would you want to elope in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park? Well, of course, because it's in Hawaii, number one. Number two, because it's a national park, it is a beautiful and beautifully kept national park. But also, it is sacred land and it contains not one but two active volcanoes. It's a really powerful place and it has this like sense of spirituality to it that I think makes a beautiful backdrop for an elopement. Because of the size of the park and, of course, the remoteness of the park being in Hawaii, it's one of the lesser visited national parks in the US, which makes it ideal for couples who are looking for something a little bit more on the private side. There are a handful of locations within the park where weddings are actually permitted, and I'll highlight a few of them that have that more private and kind of relaxed feel to them. Like I mentioned, the park is really a powerful place where new earth is literally being created regularly. And that is a really, really unique place to say your vows, but it's also a super special place because, like I said, new earth is being formed. Like, I can't imagine a better way to celebrate your marriage. Within the park, you can do as much or as little hiking as you like to. Some locations do require some hiking to get to, and others are just outside of a parking area. So it really can offer something for everyone in the way of locations that make the most sense for accessibility needs as well. So again, if you can't tell by the fact that number one, I've written a blog post, number two, I'm making this video, and number three, I'm constantly posting and talking about Volcanoes National Park, I love this park. I think it's the most beautiful location on the Big Island to get married. So, as I mentioned before, permits are required for couples to get married within Volcanoes National Park. And the application process is pretty simple. There's a $150 application fee that goes into processing the application. And then the application itself is about 2 pages. It's not very difficult to complete, but it does need to be filled out at least 4 to 6 weeks before your wedding day. I have seen it happen where the applications get processed quicker, but we don't want to rely on that. We want to be respectful of the rangers who are in charge of processing the applications time and the timelines that they give on the website. So once you submit your application for your wedding permit for the park, not the license through the state, once you submit that application, you'll get an email confirming or denying your application, and you'll be able to choose from a list of locations within the park. So you'll do that communication through email, and the ranger who is in charge of processing those applications will go through the rules again with you to make sure that you are not bringing in any prohibited items and that you and your wedding celebration are following all of the rules. Now, unfortunately, even if I am the person who is planning and photographing your Hawaii Volcanoes National Park elopement, I cannot submit the application on your behalf. You, the couple, have to do that yourselves. You're more than welcome to copy me on those emails, but it is important for you to know that you are responsible for applying for that permit. Okay, now let's get into the good stuff, where you can elope in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Now, this list is current as of February 2026, and it is not the full list, but these are a few of my favorite locations for couples getting married in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The first one, visually, I love is the Kilauea Iki Trail Overlook. This location overlooks an old caldera where lava was once flowing, I believe in the 1950s, and it's like a gigantic hardened lava pool. And it's part of the Kilauea Iki Trail. So the overlooks actually are within the rainforest, and they overlook this old hardened lava caldera. The little overlooks are just that. They are small. So if you are a couple who is eloping just the two of you, this might be the perfect location for you. Time of day will depend on your preferences for privacy. This trail is in a more visited area of the park, and so where the overlooks are tend to be a little bit more visited and have a little bit more traffic, and the overlooks themselves are set just off of the trail. So privacy can be a bit of an issue at these locations, depending on the time of day that you are planning your elopement ceremony. However, the backdrops themselves are gorgeous. But if you don't want to have your ceremony itself there because you're worried about privacy, it's certainly a great place to stop for some portraits. Okay, the next location that I love within the park is at the end of Chain of Craters Road. So the Chain of Craters Road is an 18-mile road that leads from the park entrance down to the ocean. And kind of the big feature at the end of that road is the Hilo Sea Arch. So at the end of Chain of Craters Road, there is that spot, the Hilo Sea Arch. Again, that is a little bit more of a visited location, not as popular as the Kilauea Iki Trail, but definitely popular. But a little bit further past that, there is a coconut palm grove that definitely is less visited. And within that coconut palm grove are cliffs that overlook the ocean. And depending on what the weather and the tides are like that day, the ocean can be super powerful and have all of these giant waves crashing against the cliffs. It makes for a really dramatic backdrop for your elopement ceremony or even just for portraits as well. This location is great if you are planning on having guests because it has plenty of space to spread out. And like I mentioned, it is more on the private side. It's a less visited location in that coconut palm grove at the end of Chain of Craters Road. Love, love, love that location. Okay, the third location I want to make sure you know about is Waldron's Ledge. Waldron's Ledge is a location that overlooks the currently active Kilauea caldera, and it is incredible. Like it's about a half a mile walk from the parking areas that are closest to the location. And it's over mostly paved flat road. So for anybody who has older guests with them, who maybe have mobility issues, anything like that. This location, like I said, it's about a half a mile walk, but it's not a terribly difficult walk. It makes accessibility pretty easy if a half a mile walk is within your abilities. I love this location because, like I said, it overlooks the currently active Kilauea caldera. So you can definitely see steam coming out of the caldera when it's not erupting. And when it is erupting, you're definitely going to see lava. That being said, though, when Kilauea is erupting, I can see this location being insanely busy. So I think it's important that if Waldron's Ledge is your choice for your elopement location, that we have a backup plan, because if Kilauea happens to be erupting, you are not getting privacy at that location. I can tell you that for sure. Now, if Kilauea is erupting, we are definitely still going to Waldron's Ledge to take portraits. And most people are pretty cool about the fact that you are in your wedding clothes, you have a photographer and videographer with you. They'll make some space for you to take some pretty cool pictures in front of the lava. However, we do, even with a permit, have to be respectful of other visitors to the park. All right, the final location that I want to highlight are the sulfur banks. So the sulfur banks are a location, again, pretty close to Kilauea, the currently active volcano. And they're just that. They are banks along the side of the road that have sulfur steam coming out of them. They are very, very gassy and volcanic there. So again, you really feel the power of the earth in this location, and it is a little bit smelly. However, this location is great if you have anybody who's going to be joining you with mobility issues, because it's not a very far walk from the parking area and the path itself is quite paved, or it has like a little boardwalk covering it. That being said, it is kind of similar to the Kilauea Iki Trail in that the little spaces that we can step off of to have your elopement celebration are quite small. And so as people are walking by, they're definitely going to see you. They're definitely going to comment. They're going to say things like, "Congratulations, you look beautiful," those kinds of things. So if you're wanting to avoid that, the sulfur banks may not be the best bet for you. Okay, I lied. I am going to mention one other location that's actually not in the blog. So bonus for you if you're watching on YouTube. And that's going to be the Mauna Loa Overlook. And this one, again, it's one of those lesser visited areas of the park because it's actually not within the main park entrance. However, what I love about this location is that it overlooks Kilauea and it overlooks the ocean as well. So on clear days, when you're at this overlook, you can see all of it. And again, it is quite private. Okay, if we are anything alike, you don't love a crowd, especially when you're just trying to enjoy nature. Am I right? So with that being said, I know I've kind of mentioned it already, but there are some times that it is important to avoid coming to Volcanoes National Park if you want to avoid a crowd. And so I want you to think of this in terms of kids' school schedules. The teacher in me just can't die. So if you're coming during summer vacation, that June, July, and even into August time of year, during the week of Thanksgiving, winter break, those 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, or even spring break, which tends to fall sometime in March, you can anticipate there being a ton of families with a lot of small children, especially visiting the park. The park itself is wonderful for families, and for families who are visiting from the mainland, they generally do tend to visit the park. So during those times of year, those are the peak times for tourism. I would not recommend going to the park if avoiding a crowd is your priority. That being said, February, May, September, and October are the least visited months of the year. February can be a little bit on the cold, rainy, and cloudy side. You can see where I live right now in the cloud forest is very similar to Volcanoes National Park in terms of the climate zone that we're in. So it is definitely the cold, cloudy, rainy time of year. That being said, though, May is a beautiful time to come. It's not quite summer, so it hasn't had a chance to get super hot yet, but the kids are still in school, so you can anticipate that it is not very crowded, and we generally will have longer days, which is great if you want to be able to go all around the park and have your elopement portraits taken all over the park and see all of the beautiful backdrops. September and October are great shoulder months in between that summer and fall break time. It is going to be a little bit warmer in September, and of course, the days are getting shorter in September and October as well. So we have a little bit less time to work with as far as light goes. But if that time of year works better for you, we can certainly make it work for your elopement. Okay, so one of the things that I want to make sure that you know when you're packing for your Hawaii Volcanoes National Park elopement is that you definitely want to be prepared for all weather. You can see I live in Hawaii, and here I am recording this video outside wearing a freaking sweater. And it's the same for Volcanoes National Park. Because of the elevation, you can anticipate that it's going to be chilly. And if you are like me and you grew up somewhere warm and you anticipate coming to Hawaii for warmth, you're going to be shocked by how chilly it can actually get in Volcano Village and in the park itself. So definitely pack sweaters and layers. That definitely helps when you're visiting the park. And one of the layers that I highly recommend bringing is rain gear. Like I said, the park is a rainforest. It is green for a reason, and that's because it gets so much rain. So it can start raining at the drop of a hat, and it can be raining here, but 10 yards that way, it can be totally dry. So it's really important to just be prepared for any type of weather situation. And especially if you're wearing wedding clothes, just bring a rain jacket. I promise you'll thank me. I'll have umbrellas, but you bring the rain jacket and probably some hiking boots as well. When you come into the park with all of your layers and your rain gear and your hiking boots, I do recommend bringing some snacks and being prepared with water and drinks, just because there isn't much in the way of food in the parks. There is one restaurant and a hotel within the park, and there are a handful of restaurants outside of the park and one little convenience store. However, it's just better to be prepared. Again, if we're anything alike, you love a snack and you love at least 3 drinks at one time. So be prepared with all of your favorites. As I mentioned, there actually is a hotel inside of Volcanoes National Park, and the hotel itself overlooks the currently active Kilauea volcano, which is a super cool thing. If you just happen to be here while it's erupting, like you literally will see the lava flows outside of your hotel room. But that being said, the hotel itself is a little bit on the older side. It has had a few updates, but it is definitely charming in the way of the decor of the rooms. So there's 2 little B&Bs right outside the park that are worth mentioning as well. One is going to be Volcano House and the other one is Aloha Crater Lodge. Both adorable little B&Bs run by local people with great little amenities, especially if you are an eloping couple. Around the park, there are plenty of vacation rentals that are available listed through Airbnb and VRBO that are beautiful. So depending on the size of the group that you have with you and how close you guys are, you may want to rent one of the bigger houses that are just outside of the park in Volcano Village or even in Naalehu. So let's talk about some of the questions that couples ask as they are starting to plan their Hawaii Volcanoes National Park elopement. The first one is going to be if permits are required to elope in the park. And the answer is an emphatic yes. As somebody who is not Hawaiian and not from this place, it is super, super important to me that we are being respectful of the fact that we are on sacred and also stolen land, and that we're doing everything as legally and as respectfully as possible. So that being said, in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, couples do need a permit to elope or get married in the park. You as the couple actually apply for that permit, and I'll walk you through the process, no worries there. But the permit does cost $150 for processing the permit itself. Not a hard process, not a long process, but we definitely need about 4 to 6 weeks to get that permit submitted before your elopement date. Another question people ask is, are decorations allowed? And technically, some decorations are allowed. However, you're in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, you probably don't need any decorations. You might want some flowers, maybe some lei. You may even want to have somebody who is Hawaiian to perform your wedding ceremony. And with that, maybe comes like a small table or something. But in general, decorations aren't really needed. You can have up to 1 table and 12 chairs. So if you have some guests that are going to be with you in the park, certain locations do allow a table and up to 12 chairs. Another question is, can I bring flowers? And the answer is yes-ish. So the ecosystem in the park is extremely fragile. So we have to do everything that we can to protect it, and that includes not bringing in dried or preserved flowers or flowers that are leaving seeds behind. The good news is about this, though, is that we are allowed to bring in flowers that are native to Hawaii. And so we work with some pretty incredible florists here in Hawaii who are able to meet those requirements with bridal bouquets, boutonnieres, haku leis, regular leis, and even Miley style tea leaf leis. Another question to think about is accessibility in the park. And while most of the park is not necessarily wheelchair accessible, there are a few wedding locations that are wheelchair accessible. On the Sulphur Banks, there is a trail that is paved and or has like a boardwalk, so that is a little bit easier to get a wheelchair around on. And then there's also another location called Waldron's Ledge. It is a half a mile or so walk from the parking area, but it's all over paved ground. So it is a little bit of a further walk. However, it's over pretty much even and paved ground. So it makes it much easier and accessible for a wheelchair. Finally, couples like to ask about getting their marriage license. And I have some resources linked in the description about how to actually get your marriage license. But through the state of Hawaii, it's a pretty simple process. You just apply online and pay your application fee. But the biggest thing is that if you are choosing to legally be married in the state of Hawaii, as soon as you know when and where you are eloping, you need to schedule an appointment with a licensing agent. They are the person who will verify your identity and documents to make sure you are who you say you are and that you're not entering a plural marriage situation. But you have to have an appointment with a licensing agent to legally get married in the state of Hawaii. So it's super important that you schedule that appointment as soon as you know your location and your date. Another question that comes along with the license is if your friend can officiate your wedding. And the answer is yes, they totally can. They just will have to apply for a special permit through the state of Hawaii, the health department, to be able to be your officiant for your wedding. So, if you're a couple who has been considering eloping in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and after hearing all of this information, you're like, hell yeah, Bree, sign us up. But then you start thinking about all of the logistics. Don't worry, I've got you. I am a very type A type of planner. We'll have a plan A, a plan B, and probably a backup plan C as well, because the weather and the lighting can all change at the drop of a hat. So, do you remember that I said that the weather changes in the drop of a hat here? Well, the clouds are parting and the sun is coming out, so forgive the changing light. However, I do want to let you know that if you are thinking about eloping in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, I love love. I love getting to document love, and I feel so honored every time a couple invites me to be a part of their wedding experience. The best way that I help couples to plan their Hawaii Volcanoes National Park elopement is through timelines and through really listening to what it is that you desire out of your elopement day and then helping you to make that a reality in a way that honors and respects the land that we are on and the people who live here as well. So, if you are interested in a Hawaii Volcanoes National Park elopement and having somebody like me, who is a hybrid photographer and videographer, there with you to help you plan and document the day, then use the link below to contact me and we'll schedule a call so that you can find out a little bit more about how I can help you plan your dream elopement.